We were watching silver shoot up like a rocket. It had climbed all the way to an historic high of $54 an ounce. It was an incredible sight, but 10 days ago on Tiger Stacker's channel, a very important question. Hey folks, this is Frosty. We're going to be talking about what happened 10 days ago and a decision that was made to take some profits. We're going to talk a little bit about this. We're going to talk about why the decisions were made, the metal that I chose to invest in, what had happened, and what caused me to make my decision. Like I said, we were watching silver shoot up like a rocket. It had climbed all the way to 54 bucks an ounce. Tiger Stacker and I did the stack electors go up or blow up. It was a great discussion, and during that time frame, we talked about our views of silver, where we thought it was going to go based off of the discussions that we've had with people, videos, market experts, and any analysis that we had done. We had looked at making moves. Are we holding? Are we selling? And Tiger was selling for some reasons. I was selling for another reason. And we were talking about why those were. Some of it had to do with paying bills off and investing in solar. Some of it had to do with just taking profits off the table. I just wanted to take some profit and reinvest in something that I consider to be a better buy. In my case, it was platinum. Now, I did it because there's so much future in it. Matter of fact, I showed some graphics in the platinum video that I did that if you took all the platinum and palladium in the world, it would fit into a 27 by 27 cube box. There's just not tons of it. Today, we're looking at silver continue to drop. Right now, we're sitting at around $46 an ounce. But here's the question that we have to answer. Will silver continue to drop, or will the crash actually be a good thing? We have to answer that question by looking at why it happened. Why is it dropping so fast? And to simply state, it's probably because of people selling. There's an old adage, an old rule. When people are buying, the price goes up, and when they're selling, the price goes down. Silver sometimes follows that, but not always. Think of it this way. The silver was going through the roof. 54 bucks. And a lot of people had borrowed money on that silver. Now they do this because they call it leveraging. You leverage to the point to where you can short the item or you're leveraging against it to go long. Whichever way you choose to do that, you put multiple bets on that money. In this case, we're putting it on silver. Sometimes they take risks. Some of those risks are huge. The second the price starts to take a downturn, and what happens is those people who don't really understand the long-term market demand their money back or their silver back, and it forces them to get their silver holdings and put them back on the market. This creates a little spiral where people lead to more selling. Again, FOMO. I don't think it was a panic. I just think it was an overselling. Could have been a bigger problem. See, remember, in the US, we're also facing the government shutdown that's been going on for about 4 weeks. Key reports are not being released. And these are things that they're like roadmaps for the big traders, right? Understanding what's happening and where things are moving, the jobs market, what the Fed is doing. All of this stuff is information that they need to really determine was it just a normal drop or if it was going to be a massive problem. And so the people sold faster and faster. The combination of this, along with the foreselling and the profit taking, is why we've seen the price drop 6 to 11% in the last few days. So the question here, will silver continue to drop? Will it fall back to cheap levels? No, I don't think we're going to get back to $20 silver. However, do I think it's going to stay at 46 or shoot back up to 50 or score even to 100? In order to answer that, we have to ask a few different questions. First off, this drop was necessary. These are just the market flushing out short-term gamblers, the risky money, the borrowed money. I don't know that we're out of it. It may actually go down a little bit more. There are things that we have to consider and floors that we have to look at. But when it settles, it starts to stabilize. And when it stabilizes, then it can get ready for its next move. So I said there were a couple of reasons. What are those reasons? Number one, we just ran out of silver. I talked about that in the last video. It's not just an investment. We use it in industrial, right? Solar panels, electric vehicles, new high-tech electronics, 5G. There's so many different utilizations of silver. We've seen 5 years in a row where we're seeing a massive supply shortage, right? It starts to create a very strong floor because we know that price isn't going to drop below there because, well, the demand is there. We need those physical metals. But we also have things like the Fed, and the Fed is something that they're trying to keep interest rates high to fight inflation. We all know we're in a situation that we're in. The high rates make silver less attractive. Remember, you don't gain interest by holding it. Now, a lot of stackers are going to shudder at the statement of that, but you're not gaining interest on your silver. There is some profitability there, but you can't gain interest. And for those big players that are betting against their money, just holding the silver doesn't make them any more money. So when the Fed starts to cut interest rates, the experts have to start determining where they're putting their money. Now, when rates start to drop, they expect that to start to happen in around 2026, maybe early 2027. We'll see big money really start to go back into silver and gold. In fact, a good friend of mine was talking to some investment people, and they're like, hey, we don't even own silver right now. Again, you can't make money on something that's not moving. Now, we also have to look at what has this drop done? Did it do its job? And as we discussed, the drop from 54 tended to feel a little bit chaotic. It was a massive drop over the time frame, but we're still up 38% over the year. So again, we're still seeing the market sitting in a really good place. The market is healthier for this drop, and investors are going to continue to look at the solid term reasons for holding silver. They want to make sure that the path for future is clean. All of that is very bullish. But there's another side to this story. Not everybody agrees that the bullish long-term view is the best one to take. There are people who are bearish on silver, and to some degree, I am. And you go bearish and bullish depending upon what you think the strength of the metal is, or the strength of the stock, or the strength of the sector. But I am looking at the Federal Reserve. That's going to be one of my big things to really determine if the interest rates stay high for too long. It could hurt the appeal of silver. Now, remember, you can't just sit and hold on it. It doesn't make any money. So it doesn't make sense for all of these countries that are buying this to just sit on it. If they have to, for any reason, because the dollar isn't worth what it's supposed to be, we could see that price back of 45. If it doesn't hold at 45, we could see a drop all the way back down to between what I would think $38 to $40. Why? The financials show that there's a really strong floor around that $40 level. I don't think it'll drop below 38. I really think that's the low point for silver in the near distant future. So what's the bottom line? Is the panic over? Again, I wouldn't call it a panic, but the price seems to be stable in around 46. We've talked about the three major forces: the physical shortage, the Fed pivot, and the completed market reset. Is it here yet, or are we still working on finding that firm floor? I made the decision to step out of this 10 days ago. I took profits at about $50, $51. I invested into platinum, a little bit of gold, and took some money just in case I needed it for harm's sake. And it's a good thing because I had two cars break down in the same weekend and needed to utilize some of that cash to cover it. Now, again, did silver do its job? Absolutely. It made me a little bit of money. It allowed me to reinvest that in what I think is a better investment. I think it's a stronger, cheaper buy. So I purchased some platinum and some gold. Now, the gold was my numismatic stacking thing, and that's going into my typeset book. So again, I got to meet a couple different things here. It's going to be something that keeps me in the hobby because I enjoy collecting, and I made money. It was a good process. It was a good decision. But for those of you who want to hold silver, remember the big picture. the long-term forecast is still very bullish. Now, will everybody say it's going to get to 100? Yeah, I don't think it's going to get there anytime soon. We're going to continue to see silver be volatile. It's going to go up and it's going to go down. I think the correction is the market taking a deep breath before the next round to a more sustainable and even higher run. But remember, when you take a breath, sometimes those breaths get really deep. All right, folks, keep stacking, keep collecting, keep doing your own research, and I will see you next time. Take care.